Hello and welcome to the top 10 technique characters on Bleach Brave Souls. For this list, I'm taking everything into consideration, from stats to abilities, to come up with the best green characters in the entire game. This is a top 10 overall list, not a top 10 list in a particular area, and just because a character may not make it on this list doesn't mean they're not good, as I really only have 10 spots to work with. With that said, let's begin.
Sasayake, Muramasa, Team Koga.
Starting off the list, we have Tag Team Koga, who's what I like to call a Swiss Army knife of characters, as he's useful in a variety of different situations, and can be played in multiple different styles. He not only has a really decent attack, but also a pretty good SP. Not the highest, but still good. He also has Frenzy, and his Strong Attack 3 is a 160 mag, putting it on the level of Shunsui's Strong Attack 2. Granted, his SP isn't as high, but this one is on his Strong Attack 3, and the damage output can potentially be higher. In addition to that, it also has a chance of inflicting weakening, along with his Strong Attack 2 that's a Vortex move, and his Strong Attack 1 has a chance to inflict burn, along with his special. All of this makes him one of the greatest hybrid characters ever, and extremely useful in all sorts of PvE. But he's also good in PvP. You see, Tag Team Koga has a boosted damage reduction link at 20. In addition to that, he's a tag team character, meaning he has a double killer. And while usually double killers are best when it's any combination of Soul Reaper, Hollow, or Rankar, this one on Koga is actually not that bad, because he has a Captain Killer and a Soul Reaper killer, effectively making him deal 60% more damage on captains. Still, you don't see him much in PvP anymore because there are other better green characters for PvP, but he is still a good option. And while his stats may not be as high as some of the more recent characters, his versatility puts him at number 10. At number 9, we have Fullbring Ichigo, who is still one of the greatest PvE characters you can have, even though he's well over a year old at this point. Seriously, there are not many characters that are over a year old and still relevant, but Ichigo is definitely one. He has a pretty high SP as well as Frenzy, and some pretty crazy range on the normal attacks and strong attacks. So let's start with his normal attack, shall we? They not only have really good reach, but also ridiculous speed. In addition to that, he also has a decent attack and a plus 40 bruiser, which is extremely rare for an SP character to have, making a Nat build for him not out of the question. Not only that, but all of his strong attacks are also really good and have pretty good range, especially his Strong Attack 3, that's not only full screen but also hits in waves, allowing you to take out multiple waves of enemies if they happen to spawn in the area. It's actually pretty insane how relevant this character has stayed in the last year. He may not dominate PvP anymore, but for PvE he is still one of the best.
そうか、欲しいのならばくれてやろう。ダークショコラドン。
At number 8, we have Cacao Society Tierra Halibel, who has a really high SP, Frenzy, and a boosted Strong Attack recharge link of 14. Now, Halibel may not have any status ailments going for her, but she is still one of the greatest PvE characters there is, as her strong attacks and her Nat are pretty good for crowd control. Seriously, her strong attacks are pretty much built for her ranged combat, with her Strong Attack 1 being a wave move that hits multiple times, increasing the combo and pushing enemies away, and her Strong Attack 2 being a crawling vortex move that also moves enemies away from you and increases the combo even more, allowing you to deal more damage and giving you a better score in guild quests. As for her Strong Attack 3, it may not be full screen, but it is close enough, and it deals a pretty good amount of damage. Overall, this character is just really good in PvE, as you can pretty much manipulate the enemies around you to be exactly where you want them to be to take damage from you and the rest of the team. And because she's ranged, it's pretty easy to stay away from the combat, allowing you to do damage from a distance and letting you go through the raid taking minimal damage. Coming in at number 7 is Dark Rukia, a character that a lot of people, for whatever reason, didn't like, which is strange considering she's actually a really good character. She not only has a really high SP as well as Frenzy, but also a pretty good attack, which actually plays into how much damage her strong attacks do. That said, her actual normal attack string does feel a little bit lacking. Still, it isn't bad, and her normal attack as well as all of her strong attacks and her special all have a chance to inflict debilitating weakening, which then allows her to deal even more damage considering weakening lowers enemies' defense. It also makes her attack hit for 1, which can come in in really handy in boss fights and some of the harder PvE areas. Rukia also has pretty decent strong attacks, with her strong attack 1 being something that we've seen a few times already, and her strong attack 2 having pretty good range, though not as good a range as some of the other characters with similar attacks. Her strong attack 3 is a charge move, which as you all know doubles in strength when fully charged, and if you build this character correctly can hit with the power of a special. And having this character have a strong attack recharge link means that you can build this character in a way where you can spam these attacks over and over again. Finally, there's the fact that this character has no affiliation, meaning she has very little weaknesses, the only one right now being Ukiora. She also has a Soul Reaper killer, which is the best killer you can have. Overall, I do agree that she could have been made a little better, but the character that we ended up getting is actually still pretty great. Coming in at number 6 on the list is the character that previously had the number 1 title, Sosuke Aizen 4th Fusion Edition, who not only held the title for number 1 green, but also the title for the highest SP in the game. Of course this isn't true anymore, but it's still ridiculously high. In addition to that, he also has Frenzy, as well as a strong attack 2 that's a boost move, which in combination with his strong attack recharge link, can be used to have infinite boost on this character if you build him correctly, effectively making his attack always over 800 and boosting his defense and focus as well. His attack being over 800 means that his normal attack will deal more damage, but it also means that his strong attacks will deal more damage, as his attack gets thrown into the equation when determining how much damage the strong attacks do. Because of this boost move, it also means you can build him as an AD character, because he wouldn't just have the increase in attack, but he also has a plus 40 bruiser and a plus 20 long reach. Still, the best way to build him is as a strong attack recharge character, because the rest of his strong attacks are also pretty good. His strong attack 1 has a typical strong attack 1 range, but his strong attack 3 is full screen, and it also hits in waves, similar to Fullbring Ichigo. Finally, this character special, in addition to dealing a lot of damage, also has a chance to instant kill, which is the most amount of damage you can possibly deal. This ability has become increasingly more relevant with the addition of Senkaimon quests, as it can be used to take care of specific enemies in the final floors of Senkaimon. Now I know what some of you may be thinking. Why in the world is Soifun in front of Aizen this time when she wasn't last time? Well, this is actually a pretty good example of how a character's usefulness has greatly increased in the last year. In fact, she's one of the most sought after characters, and if you need proof of that, think of how few times she's actually been a filler in the last year. Soifun has so many things going for her. She not only has a really high SP as well as Frenzy, but she can also inflict debilitating poison on everything, except for her special, which can inflict debilitating burn. Not only that, she also has a decent attack for an SP character, increasing the damage of her overall strong attacks, and she has a boosted strong attack recharge link of 14%. But wait, there's more, because I know there are other characters that also have a recharge link and debilitating strong attacks. The reason she's so sought after is because of her boosted flash steps and long stride, which make her one of the fastest characters when it comes to clearing levels. It also makes her one of the best characters to take on guild quests, because your strong attacks have really good range and you can just dash to the other side of the area. And there are other characters who have long stride and boosted flash steps, but because of the range and damage on her strong attacks, Soifun actually beats them out in terms of usability. The debilitating poison is just a really huge bonus. A bonus that can be used to take out pretty much any enemy, due to the fact that poison does percent damage, not a set number. Still, I do kinda wish her SP was a little bit higher, if only for the fact that now SPs are getting really high and everything looks small in comparison. But that's more of a me problem, not an actual character problem.
冷圧をぶち込んで叩き起こしたいやつがいるんだ。まだ全然使いこなせちゃいねえけどな。
Now Ichigo may not be as fast as Soifun, but in terms of actual damage, he deals a lot more per hit, as he still has the highest attack in the game as of this recording, as well as Flurry, and a normal tech damage link. That's like all of the damage. Well, maybe not all of it, but you guys get the idea. It is a ton of damage. And his strong attacks aren't useless either. His strong attack 3 breaks guard after all, and his strong attack 2 is a crawling vortex that helps keep enemies away from you and increases the combo, getting you a better score in guild quest and more damage overall. He's also the first Flurry character that is ranged, which can come in pretty handy in PvE, as you can deal heavy amounts of damage to the enemies from far away and survive for a lot longer. But this character does have a downside in his killer. It's an Espada killer, and it's not exactly relevant right now. Finally, this character also has a pretty useful special, and I know that his special may not deal that much damage, especially if you chappy him, but even if you do chappy him, it still leaves the enemies with defense weakening, which lets you deal more damage with your normal attack. This Ichigo is one super powerful character, and he's useful in almost every single situation you put him in.
甘いの
At number 3 on the list, we have one-armed Yama, who also has a really high attack as well as flurry. And I know we just covered one that had that, but this one also has poise. And this allows him to be really good in PvP. Not only that, but he also has a Captain Killer, which is also not as useful as having, say, a Soul Reaper around Karo Hollow Killer, but for PvP in particular, it's actually the best one you can have, since most of the characters you encounter in there are captains. Most of the tougher ones anyway, himself included, because this character also has debilitating burn on everything, and because his normal attack hits twice, it's double the chance of inflicting that burn. His strong attacks are also very useful for that. Sure, they don't deal that much damage, but because they hit so many times and they have good range, they do have a strong chance of inflicting that burn, making this character really good in PvE, though maybe not as fast as some other PvE characters. To top it all off, he also has a pretty cool special that's a Vortex special. It's the second one of its kind, and it's way more useful than the Now's because this one is guaranteed to inflict burn. And finally we have his Link, which is damage reduction. It's also one of the best things about him because it lets him last a long time in PvP as well as PvE. Under a DR build he may not be able to get things done super quickly, but he's definitely one of the better characters to auto with because of it. We may not have gotten him on the Yama, and it's likely we never will. But I for one am super glad they made this one, as it's probably as close as we're gonna get. And it's also nice to see that we got a version of Yama that fits the title head captain.
挽回観音開き絵に姫改め仕方ないっすね
Coming in at number 2 is Quisqueya Urahara, 1000 Year Blood War Edition, who's actually very close to being number 1, as he has the highest SP for a green character, and some of the greatest abilities of all time. For one thing, he has Frenzy, which is great for his strong attacks because his first one has great range, and it hits with 180% mag, which is absolutely crazy. It actually can deal a ton of damage if you pin a character up against the wall, or it can be used to push enemies away from you since it has such great range. Then there's his strong attack 2, that hits in 2 different waves, and has some pretty good range. In fact, I'm not really sure if we've seen another strong attack like this. It's not anything special when it comes to damage, but it sure is fun to use, and can come in handy when dealing with multiple waves in a single area. And lastly we have the strong attack 3, which is just a typical full screen strong attack 3. It just happens to do a lot of damage because he has such a high SP. Quisqueya also has a decent attack, both in terms of actual damage and in speed and range. But I know you guys are all waiting to hear about his special, because it is the most useful special in the entire game. And I'm including the specials that heal in this, because it allows him to revive any ally that was alive at the time that he used the special, if they should happen to die after. And this works pretty much anywhere, whether it's PvE, co-op, or PvP. Seriously, I can't say enough good things about this special. It's almost like having 6 characters, and it comes in really handy when you auto. And while this special is the most useful thing that Quisqueya has, and probably the most useful thing any character has, it's not the only useful thing about him. Quisqueya is also completely resistant to poison, which can come in handy in multiple PvE areas, especially some of the areas in Inheritance Zones, the Droplet Zones, and the Senkaimon Quest. This guy is personally my favorite character, and I'm really glad he made it this high on the list. Now before I reveal number 1, here are a few characters that almost made it on the list. They are definitely top tier, and some of them are actually really close to taking the number 10 spot.
ぬるいなこれで終わりだ月が天章
処理がなかったのでこれで解決私が吹き飛ばしてあげるあなたの心も晴れたかしら
千景千本桜影吉王に一家先人か
どこを見ているお前の相手はこの私だ
お前が逃れる術はね
And at number 1 we have Tag Team Toshiro Hitsugaya, and I'm not gonna lie you guys, I was actually pretty sad because I really wanted my favorite character to be number 1, and he would have been had I done this list last week. But fair is fair, and I will remain unbiased. Toshiro is actually the best green character there is right now. He has a ridiculously high SP, only 5 points behind Quisqueya, and he has Frenzy, which comes in really handy when all of your strong attacks can inflict debilitating freezing. Speaking of which, his strong attacks all have really great range, from his strong attack 1 that's a lunge move to his strong attack 2 that's a beam move. And while his strong attack 3 isn't a full screen move, it still has pretty crazy range. And it's also a vortex move. Well, a hybrid vortex move, similar to Kokuto's, except instead of the vortex being in front of him, the vortex is where Toshiro is. It also looks really cool as it leaves behind Hyorimaru, but the best thing about him is the fact that he's a tag team character, and all tag team characters have double killers. Toshiro just happened to get the 2 best killers in the game of Soul Reaper and Arankar. As I've mentioned before, this lets him be useful in twice as many things as all the other characters, as you're almost guaranteed to be able to use him in any extreme co-op, inheritance zones, droplet raids, and a bunch of other stuff. And because there's so many events right now that multiply killers, this is extremely valuable. Not to mention that most of the bosses you end up facing are either Soul Reapers or Arankars, making this character really useful in most scenarios, and it's what ends up putting him at number 1 on this list. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next top 10 video. Hello there! Have a specific complaint about this top 10 video? Maybe there's a character that you wanted to see on here that didn't make it. Or maybe you have a complaint about a certain placement of a specific character. Well, have I got the place for you. Click the link in the description below to get transported to a special video, where you can air your grievances about this video and my other content, and use all the fancy words that you don't want your mom and dad to see. It'll be our little secret.